Good afternoon, and welcome to 365 Days of Stories with Theo Mayer. Day 65. The great thing about stories is you can tell them just about anywhere, and you don't need a big old setup or something like that. You just go for it, and away they go. Tell them, sitting around a table, walking down the street, driving in a car, anywhere you are. Anyway, here I am. This is the Santa Lucia Mountains of Big Sur. Oh, that's a truck full of firewood. Anyway, these mountains are very much like the mountains that were around the Alhambra. Almost the same. Kind of cool. And same kind of rock types as well. Geology, very similar to down here in Big Sur. Granite, decomposed granite. Climate, great for growing olives and almonds and citrus and all that wonderful stuff. Spain's much the same. Incredible country, I've heard. Hopefully soon, I'm going to get to see that. But today, continuing with stories from the Alhambra, I'm going to tell you about a governor. He was called a governor. One-armed governor, by God. And, he'd lost his arm in battle. And it was kind of an unfortunate thing. But not stop him from being quite a force and a presence. Now, he was the governor of the Alhambra. Alhambra, over the years, had kind of fallen into decay a little bit. It became a place for vagrants to hang out. A lot of gypsies went there with their bands. They hid out in caves that were out in the mountains and, under collapsing buildings, and against walls they would set up their camps. And it wasn't just gypsies, it was like kind of vagabonds, banditos, those kinds of people. And there was a whole way of making a living that began to prey upon the wealthier people that lived in the Alhambra. As is often the case, even to this very day, the wealthy, especially when they don't share it with people that are less fortunate than themselves, end up being, prey to people with less. Robbing is a thing that, easy kind of way in a lot of people's minds to make a little dough, have some things. Well, the governor, this one-armed man, I think they called him, I can't remember what they called him. I'll tell you tomorrow. Something Governor Manco. And it had something to do with him only having one arm. Well, he really kind of cracked down on all this stuff that would go on. He tried to clear out sort of the population of people that was living off stealing, that was kind of, what do they call that? Squatting on the land. And so he had patrols going out, men going out on marches and looking for vagrants, and they would question them, send them on their way, get them outside the walls of the Alhambra if that was necessary. And there was kind of a big crackdown. Now, there was also in the Alhambra the captain of the guards. Now, the captain of the guards kind of oversaw another group of men rather than just there being captain of the guard and the governor was above the captain of the guard. Captain of the guard was kind of on his own. The governor was kind of on his own. But I will tell you about the governor. He did like to go off through the Alhambra, and he had this, it's like a carriage, old style, carved wood, leather seats, beautiful spoked wheels, and it was pulled by 8 mules. And when he would go off through the Alhambra, there would be all these foot soldiers that would accompany him and men on horseback, and they would all be fully decked with weapons. And, he was kind of making a show of power. And though some people thought, it's kind of cool, other people kind of sneered about it and thought, wow, it's a little too much. Captain of the Guards, well, he was pretty into being the captain of the guards and was into kind of playing with his power. Now, there was a special condition. If goods were coming into Alhambra, they were typically taxed. But if they were going to the governor's palace or, somebody that had something to do with the governor, the taxes were waived. And if the incoming cart had on it the flag of the Alhambra, it was to be left alone. But the captain of the guards, he oversaw the custom house where everybody was supposed to pay taxes. And at one point in time, he had, an alliance with a lawyer notary, who was really good at writing up legal documents. And he wrote a legal document up and sent it to the governor saying that he needed to pay taxes just like everybody else. The governor was like, no, not going to do that. I don't think he even responded to the letter. But anybody who interfered with goods coming into the Alhambra, flying the flag of the Alhambra, was to be cut down either with a sword or shot with a musket. And one time, when this muleteer was bringing in a wagon full of goods, led by 2 mules, the captain of the guards, he sees the wagon coming in. He sends out all these custom house representatives to go check on the goods and see what's coming in and tax appropriately. Now, there was an old school corporal that served the governor, and he played by the book. He'd been out in many battles, and he was not a guy to be trifled with. And the wagon's coming up, and the custom house people come out. Captain of the guards is watching from his little station, and they stop the wagon. They grab hold of one of the bridles of the mule and bring him to a stop. And the corporal said, you need to let us pass. Clearly, the flag of Alhambra was flying on this wagon full of goods. Well, the custom house guy and the guards that were part of the custom house, they weren't going to let him go through. Corporal leveled his gun at one of the guards that was there stopping the mules from going further and said, if you do not get out of the way, I will shoot you down. I'll cut you down. And this guy was like, I'm not letting you go through. Well, the muleteer, knowing what the rules were, he gave his mules a smack with his reins on their rumps. They would move forward. And as they did, this guard grabbed hold of the bridle and pulled it, stopping the animals. And the corporal followed through with what he said he was going to do. He shot the guy dead. Now, this created great commotion. The captain of the guard comes out of his house, comes running down to the road. He brings with him some guards. They surround the corporal. They arrest him. They put him in shackles, and they take him up, put him in the dungeon. And as they do this, the muleteer continues on with his goods. Now, the notary lawyer guy, he writes up some papers and sends it to the governor, saying that this man has committed a crime and he's going to be tried by the captain of the guards. The governor says, I'm sorry, you can't do that. This happened in my city. I have jurisdiction. I will be the one that does the trying. And on top of that, he is under my command. He was following my orders. Well, the lawyer, notary guy, he gets really excited. He starts writing papers. Governor writes a few back, goes back and forth a little bit. And the governor is getting more and more angry by the whole thing. Well, pretty soon the captain of the guard is threatening to execute the corporal for murder. They hold a trial. He's found guilty, and they're going to execute him. They're going to hang him. Well, now things are escalating, and the governor is getting pretty worked up. Well, the captain of the guards, to make a show of his pomp and power, erects a wooden hanging station. The governor, he's an old, wizened war man. He's not going to take this kind of thing lightly. So anyway, papers have gone back and forth, and finally the governor's, I'm going to go take care of this myself. So he shows up at the custom house where the notary lawyer man is, and he says, please bring me the papers. The guy goes and grabs the papers. He says, here, you come look at them. He says, no, come into my carriage so that I can see them more closely. We'll sit and look at them here together. So the notary lawyer guy, he hops into the carriage. Before you know it, the guards had him shackled. The carriage doors were slammed shut, and off went that carriage up to the governor's palace. He was thrown into a dungeon. And now the governor sends a letter to the custom house guy that, if he doesn't follow through, he's going to have the notary lawyer executed. And to show what he's going to do, he has a hanging rack set up. Well, the captain of the guard says, sorry, I'm going through with this anyway. The appointed day is there, and all this, drumming and all of this stuff goes on. And the prisoner, the corporal, had spent the night before in the chapel dungeon where he could, abate all of his sins before he was put to rest. Well, the day comes and, he's marched out. Believe me, the governor has the lawyer notary marched out. He's marched out right to the hanging spot. He's, and he'd sent a letter to the captain of the guards. You hang my man, I'm hanging your lawyer. And so here he is. Now, I will tell you, the lawyer had a wife and many children. She came running up to the captain of the guards, begged him not to execute the corporal, because he said, the governor's going to follow through with what he says. He's going to hang my husband. And then what am I to do? And she just starts bawling and crying. Captain of the guards, he's like taken in by it. He realizes he cannot let this go on because the governor will hang the lawyer. So the corporal is sent back. The governor, he brings the lawyer into his presence. He says, look, man, don't try to intimidate me with your papers ever again. Yeah, you can write words, but that's not going to cut it here. Be careful who you end up accusing and sending to the gallows would be my suggestion. Don't be in such a hurry to do so. And don't underestimate an old war man, even if he only does have one arm. He sent the lawyer on his way. That guy really thought about things differently after that. It was said that when he returned, his hair had gone from black to gray in a matter of days. Anyway, tomorrow I have another story that includes that beautiful one-armed governor. Something else that happens in Alhambra. Thanks for joining. Tune in tomorrow. Okay, have a good rest of your day.